Hey everybody, what is happening? Brent Axe here on the syracuse.com Syracuse Orange Facebook page. And we are here, I believe the great Jack Buck said it best. I don't believe what I just saw, but we saw it. It happened. It's happening. Syracuse is going to the Sweet 16. The Orange, the last team in, 68 out of 68, won 3 games in 5 days, including over a favorite on many brackets, a team that had a virtual home crowd in Detroit, the more talented team, the more physical team, the more everything team. But what they did not get today, if you're Michigan State, is a win. The Orange get the win. They take down the Spartans 55-53 in a gritty, physical, hard-to-watch game at times, frankly, but that is what Syracuse has done. They have embraced the grind, and the grind has got them standing, when this is all said and done, as one of the last 16 teams in college basketball. This has been a March Madness tournament like no other. We saw a 16 seed beat a 1 seed. We've seen upsets. We've seen buzzer beaters. So some of the usual things that we see in March Madness, right? But some very unusual things as well. The Orange just find ways to win, plain and simple. And they did it again here today, 55-53. The final score from Detroit, you guys are going bananas here in the comments, as you should be. A Syracuse fan should be thrilled at what they have seen so far. The fact that this team just made the tournament is, incredible on its own. And the fact that they beat Arizona State and then beat TCU, and the fact that they were in this game at all was incredible. But to beat Michigan State with all the factors that I brought up and some others is incredible. So I just saw this comment go by there. It is certainly one of the best jobs that Jim Boeheim has done as a head coach. And, once upon a time, 3 years ago, this was supposed to be Jim Boeheim's last, season as head coach of the Orange. Of course, circumstances changed there. And what this team does is it is grit, it is heart, it is determination. It's not the prettiest thing to watch, but as we've been saying all along here, embrace the grind. Syracuse has embraced being the team no one wants to play. They have embraced being the team that scores in the 50s, that plays hard-nosed defense. The 2-3 zone, once again, baffling a team. It baffled Arizona State into one of their lowest scoring games of the season, a team that was averaging in the 80s. It baffled TCU on Friday, and Jamie Dixon, of course, from Pittsburgh at TCU now, was supposed to know the zone, was supposed to be able to break that down. Tom Izzo, one of the best coaches in college basketball, his team couldn't figure it out today. Michigan State could not. And what is the most incredible thing about this game, one thing that has really held back Syracuse all year long was rebounds. And they got out-rebounded today badly. 51-30, Sparty was all over Syracuse on the rebounds. On the offensive end, Michigan State had 26 offensive rebounds to Syracuse's 4. All the putback points, all the second chance points that Michigan State had in this game. And it didn't matter, because here's the stat that mattered the most. Really a couple stats that mattered the most in a very, hard to watch, ugly game. But again, Syracuse fans think it's the most beautiful thing in the world right now because they have embraced the grind and embraced the ugly here. Michigan State went 17 of 66 from the field. That's 25%. Not that the Orange were much better. They were 15 of 42 at 35%. Whistles blowing all over the place in this game. The referees, frankly, a little too involved, but, Syracuse said, if you're going to put us at the free throw line 31 times, the Orange are going to cash in there. 24 of 31. Syracuse was 77% from the free throw line in this game. Michigan State getting there just 16 times. They get 11 of those, 68% from the field. Tyus Battle went into halftime with 1 point. He was 0 for 4 at the break. He ends up with 17 points on the day. O'Shea Brissett also playing all 40 minutes in this game for the Orange. He has 15 points, a great second half at many times in this game, challenging Miles Bridges, Michigan State's best player, head on. Frank Howard only played 33 minutes in this game, the reason being he fouled out, but he ends up with 13. Merrick Dolezaj with 6 points and 6 rebounds. And, Syracuse got, a pretty good effort from Matthew Moyer, who was in there playing some good defense, even in just his 8 minutes. Braden Bayer had to come in and log 7 minutes because Frank Howard fouled out of this game. Pascal Chukwu didn't exactly light up the box score because he got into foul trouble in this game, but, hits a free throw at the end. It was just one of those games where everybody had to do something. Syracuse had to grind. They had to bring Michigan State kind of down into the mud pit, and it just became a fight. And Syracuse has loved a street fight in this tournament, and that's what they did again today. The 2-3 zone, folks, it can baffle teams. It can baffle teams that are used to it. It can baffle teams that aren't used to it, and it can carry you right where Syracuse is. Sweet 16 for the Orange, which is incredible to think about. Hey, Doug Gottlieb, how you doing there, pal? What's happening, Doug? We'll have to get Doug back on the Syracuse Sports Podcast this week, see what he thinks about all of this, right? So Orange fans checking in everywhere. I can't even keep up with you guys. This is great. You guys just go bananas here in the comment section, and I'll keep yakking at you, and we'll react to these comments as they go. Look, no matter what happened today, this was a successful season for Syracuse. They were the last team in. They were on the bubble right till the last, regular season game against Clemson when they, had to win that game and did and beat the Tigers. And they go in the ACC tournament, have a great performance against Wake Forest, lose to North Carolina. We all sweat out those few days leading into Selection Sunday, 4 long days, that whole Thursday, that whole Friday, that whole Saturday, that whole Sunday. The Orange are the last team in, and people are screaming about Syracuse shouldn't be in and all these other teams that deserve bids over the Orange. I mean, go over USC and Notre Dame and, all these teams that didn't belong there. But, as Syracuse demonstrated 2 years ago, and the irony is Michigan State was in Syracuse's bracket then. Now, 2 years ago when Syracuse made a Final Four run, Michigan State got knocked out early. And then Syracuse, used that opening to beat, Middle Tennessee State and kind of advance through and make it all the way to the Final Four. This time they go through Michigan State. Syracuse has beat Michigan State. I believe it's 5 straight times now, but the last time that these two met in the tournament, it was when Michigan State was on its way in 2000 with Mateen Cleaves at guard. Remember that team, the 2000 Michigan State team that won the national championship, and they beat Syracuse in the Sweet 16. So it's always funny how, in recent years when Syracuse gets it cranked up and as a double-digit seed advances a lot further than people would expect them to, Michigan State is always involved somehow, as they were here again. So, Tom saying in the comments there, Jim Boeheim gets the game ball. The commentators have said this, and a lot of people have said this, that it's not just a typical 2-3 zone, and it's not. It traps you. It attacks you. The biggest thing that the zone does, if you're not used to it, is it makes you think things that aren't there. You're seeing ghosts with that zone defense. You think you have an open shot, then Syracuse will trap on you. You think that skip pass is there, and it's not. Somebody will stick a hand out and knock the ball away and get it going. It's just a grind, and it's frustrating, and it piles up. Even with the home crowd there, for Michigan State to get that kind of crowd, they had 95% of the crowd in Detroit today. But you know how you take a crowd out of that? You play grinded, hard-nosed defense. You start missing shots. For Miles Bridges, who was brilliant in Michigan State's last game, he had 29 points, just absolutely brilliant, hitting shots all over the place. He has 11 points today. Winston ends up with 15, Ward with 10. This was a Michigan State team that came in that could, you had 5 guys that were shooting over 37% from three-point range. We mentioned Bridges, who, came back for another year at Michigan State. He is a surefire top 10 NBA draft pick whenever he chooses to leave, which I would imagine we just saw his last game in a Michigan State uniform. He'll probably declare for the NBA draft coming up here. But, the tournament offers you this chance to do something like this. And Syracuse said, are we going to fight fire with fire? And are we going to beat this team straight up? The answer to that is no. Syracuse has managed for 3 straight games now to do it their way. And, it's not the typical Syracuse way that we have seen in the past. What we have seen in the past from Syracuse is teams that love to go up and down the floor and push the tempo, and offensive-minded teams, right? But you have to embrace what you are. And the fact that this team, as we have talked about throughout, they have 6 guys. Okay, it's technically 7, but with Barama being so limited, and Barama, logged some quality minutes for the Orange today with Pascal Chukwu in foul trouble, essentially 6, 7 guys. They just find a way. There is a great lesson to be learned from this team. It's not the prettiest thing in the world to watch, but you go with what you have. And what Syracuse has is a team of 7 guys that will fight you for 40 minutes. It's a rock fight. It's a scrap. It's a claw. It's gritty. they get offensive spurts when needed. Not to say there weren't some offensive plays in this game. I mean, O'Shea Brissett made some shots when he needed to. Tyus Battle getting inside when he needed to. There were spurts of offense. The lob pass wasn't working. Syracuse was trying to get that going, and it wasn't working, so you just find a different way. We mentioned you get to the free throw line 31 times. It's not what you want to see. The officials, frankly, were inconsistent on both sides, by the way. That out-of-bounds call at the end, what would we have been talking about had that out-of-bounds call, gone the other way and Michigan State capitalized on that? That ball was clearly off Tillman's knee for Michigan State, but they still give the Spartans the ball. It ended up not mattering. There was the other review. Here's another what-if thing. 7 seconds to go, Tyus Battle, the ball goes out of bounds, giving Michigan State an opportunity. But, Syracuse, used the fouls wisely, used the clock as best they could. There was still a nervous moment there at the end. Pascal Chukwu has been amazing at the free throw line. This guy started out the year. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat from the free throw line, but we have heard these great stories about how they will not let him leave practice until he's made, I think 20 in a row. He shoots 100 free throws after every practice, and, he has slowly but surely improved there, and, at times he's had to go to the free throw line and ice it for Syracuse. He was huge in Syracuse's win against TCU. He's been huge in a number of games this year, and, he only hit 1 out of 2 at the end there, but, that's all Syracuse needed, right? So, incredible. This is an incredible story. No matter what happened today, I think Syracuse fans would have walked away and said, hey, we'll take it, right? That's a great season. They were on the brink of the Final Four, but why not keep it going? And who's next for the Orange? No matter what, there's going to be a ACC team in the Elite Eight because Syracuse gets Duke. And Syracuse's next stop, you guys up for a trip? I believe the Counting Crows sang a great song about it, right? Omaha, somewhere in middle America. How about Peyton Manning, too? Omaha, right? So we'll get all the Omaha jokes going this week. But that is where the Orange are off to next to take on Duke in the Sweet 16. Say it, and it's pretty sweet for Orange fans. Like I said, I can't even keep up with you guys in the comments, and that's beautiful. You guys are just going crazy. You're letting it flow. You're letting it happen. You're celebrating it, and you should enjoy it. You really should enjoy it. Chris saying Bayer got to put the sticker up. So much hustle from that kid. Yeah, the new tradition, like they did for the tournament in the summer. They're showing, putting the sticker up on the bracket. How about Bayer gets the call today with the hustle at the end? So Syracuse gets another shot at Duke, and we all know what happened the first time around. Syracuse only played Duke once this year, and Duke dominated. Wendell Carter and Marvin Bagley Jr. just tore up Syracuse inside. It was a 60-44 game. Duke turned their season around. Now, Duke was good. Duke was going to make the tournament, but Duke was, they were struggling for a while. Do you know what turned their season around, by the way? Mike Krzyzewski learned a thing or two sitting by Jim Boeheim on all those Olympic teams. They start playing zone defense, and Duke becomes unstoppable. So Syracuse is getting a Duke team that can, obviously can flat out score. You saw what they did to Rhode Island yesterday. They looked amazing in that game, and they're playing better defense. But you got a week of rest now. Syracuse badly needs that, right? Because they had to play 3 games in 5 days and win 3 games in 5 days to get here. So they'll come back to Syracuse, rest up a little bit, head back out to Omaha later this week, and they'll get a Duke team that, they're familiar with them, and Syracuse is familiar with Duke, and it's going to be a matchup of 2-3 zones, and Syracuse is going to have to find a way to contain, a team that's got, great scoring and Carter and Bagley, and, of course, another matchup with Grayson Allen, because that's what we wanted, right? One more game with Grayson Allen and the flop fest that we'll get from him. So you can't ask for anything more than that. It just didn't feel right that Syracuse only played Duke once this year, and that was at Cameron Indoor Stadium, and, it wasn't much of a game, frankly. It was one of the few games this year that wasn't, competitive, because that's what Syracuse has done all year, in that, yeah, they only won 20 games in the regular season and lost a couple games that they should have had. NC State and Notre Dame and some games come to mind, but it doesn't matter now. But there were a couple games that Syracuse was just outmatched, one of the Virginia games and that Duke game, and that's really it. But to be in this tournament, and to play Michigan State, so Virginia lost, as we know, to a 16 seed, which is still incredible to think about. Arizona was a big favorite on a lot of brackets. because of DeAndre Ayton, and they kind of have that motivation factor because of the NCAA stuff going on. They lose. They're out. Duke's still on a lot of brackets. They're still in there, of course, and you've got some number one seeds that are still alive. But, Michigan State was – I'll tell you what, you can tear up my bracket. I had the Spartans going all the way in this one, but I think everybody's pretty much tore up their brackets at this point. So now it's just a matter of how far can Syracuse go. And I'm seeing a few of you say this in the comments that Bayer got to put the sticker up for the Orange. It was Merrick Dolezaj last game, and that's become kind of a cool tradition there. And that just goes to show you everybody's got to contribute something on this team, and that's what happened. So Syracuse wins 55-53. Syracuse fans going crazy all over, and that's what I love about doing this Facebook Live with you guys, because we're seeing Syracuse fans check in from all over the place here. And, now it's a matter of, okay, you take a breath, you reset, you certainly celebrate this. If you're an Orange fan, I'm sure some T-shirts are to come from this, right? Our friends at Holy Shirt, I'm sure I'm going to print up some kind of Sweet 16 T-shirts at some point here. So, this is what makes this time of the year tolerable. This is what makes this time of the year great for Syracuse fans. It's cold, it's snowy. The weather's it was sunny and clear in central New York today, but, that winter's hanging on temperature-wise. We just had a great St. Patrick's Day weekend. Hope everybody had a great St. Patrick's Day, and you roll into today, and the Orange are still playing. This is what makes Syracuse fans the happiest this time of the year when, their team is in March, but it makes it a little sweeter when it's a team like this. I mean, honestly, the most diehard Syracuse fan in the world, how many of you had the Orange in your Sweet 16, in your bracket? Come on, you're lying. You didn't, right? But that's okay because, they'd have to win 3 out of 5 as the play-in team, as the last team in. People don't do that. One of the few teams that made it from the play-in round of the Final Four, remember that VCU team a few years ago? They did that, but I think Syracuse fans really took on the mentality of this is gravy, no matter how far they went. But now they're in the Sweet 16, and they're playing Duke. It's incredible to think about. As we said, it wasn't the prettiest game in the world. It's not a game and it was interesting to see a lot of the national people that were there and, people that were just kind of checking in on this game saying, oh, boy, Tiger Woods is making a run on the leaderboard. This is more interesting than this basketball game. Syracuse fans, gave up on that a long time ago because they know this is just Syracuse's best shot to win these games. And it just goes to show you what defense, grit, heart, hustle, all the words you can come up with will do for a team because that's how they did it. I'm just looking at the stats here. It's just incredible to me that this Michigan State team was held down the way they were. 17 of 66 from the field, 25%. They out-rebounded Syracuse 51-30. Syracuse went 1 of 8 from three-point range. I just noticed that too. I mean, certainly you knew it watching the game because it wasn't an offensive game by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're going to tell me that Syracuse beat Michigan State, I would have told you, honestly, that they did this. They, got Michigan State down. They played a grinded-out defensive type of game. But I would, if you had then told me, Syracuse only made 1 3-pointer, I would tell you you're nuts. If Syracuse would win that game against a Michigan State team that had 5 guys that hit 37% or more from the three-point line this year, have Miles Bridges, have the physical team. You look at the rebounding stats, as we mentioned, 51-30, 26 offensive rebounds for the Spartans to 4 for Syracuse, right? But that's what makes this time of the year great. That's what makes college sports great, is it's about more than numbers. It's about who wants it more. It's about grit, and it's about taking advantage of opportunities. And, Syracuse threw Michigan State completely off their game and found their way to the end. A lot of tense moments. I mentioned those T-shirts. We should just get the Cardiac Q T-shirts back out, right? Because that's what this team has been, and they've done it all year long. At halftime, when McQuaid hit that shot, okay, Matthew Moyer comes out, makes a great block. The ball gets back to McQuaid for Michigan State, who makes that kind of – I don't know how he even got that shot off, let alone got the shot to go in, let alone banks it. Okay, the bank's not open on Sunday, but he hits that. And that's happened to Syracuse more often than it should, frankly. This year, the teams were capitalizing on plays and executing right at the end of the half. But in that moment, you had to say, okay, There's a little momentum for the Spartans. They're going to come out. They're going to play aggressive in the second half. They'll start hitting some shots. They're going to play Michigan State basketball. But it just never happened. It just didn't happen. And then you could see it, the confidence building in Syracuse, even with the foul trouble, even when Frank Howard went down. No matter the obstacle, no matter what was put in front of this team, you know, a cliche really came to life. A lot of cliches came to life, frankly, here. But find a way to win. Just find a way to grind and make it happen. And once you're in those last, what was the moment you thought Syracuse could win this game? Because really, when you're coming down the stretch, there's 5 minutes to go, there's 4 minutes to go. You could see it in the players. You could see the confidence going. And for these guys to find something, you know, energy-wise, I mean, these guys have to be exhausted having played 3 games in 5 days. 2 of those games, you know, were tips at right around 10 o'clock at night. And then today, thanks for that, by the way, and more. It's weird to watch Syracuse basketball with daylight outside the window, right? It's been a strange thing here lately. But for this team with only 7 players, you know, then Pascal gets into foul trouble. Barama gets into foul trouble. Merrick Dolezaj's in foul trouble. Frank Howard fouls out of the game. The way Michigan State plays, Michigan State is probably, if you had to put it up there, the most physical, bruising team in college basketball. They wear you down. And, you know, we saw what happened with the rebounding stats, right? We saw what happened there, but how do you make that not matter? Free throws matter, first of all. Great defense. Grind it out. Get some calls to go your way, and let's be honest. Some calls went Syracuse's way that shouldn't have, right? Got to the free throw line 31 times. The out-of-bounds call, though, with, you know, not the Tyus Battle one, the one before that they reviewed for a long time, that went Michigan State's way. That clearly should have been Syracuse ball. So, you know, the officiating certainly went both ways and, you know, was inconsistent on both sides, to be honest with you. But you just find a way, and that's what this Syracuse team did. It's incredible. It's really incredible to think about, considering the depth, the lack. You got to score in this tournament. I saw a stat here. I'll pull it up for you while we're yakking about it here. Because at some point, like, you can win a game or two in the tournament being the low-scoring, grinded-out team. That's always what, you know, faulted Virginia for a while, right? Because they play that pack line defense, but you got to score eventually. Let me give you a couple of stats here, okay? Syracuse was 315th in the country in scoring. They were 318th in field goal percentage, 321st in three-point shooting. There's 351 teams in Division I college basketball. Syracuse is the only team to win in this year's NCAA tournament in a game that had scored 60 points or fewer. That's now 2 games, by the way. Syracuse 2-0, 3-0 now with this win. Every other team that scored 60 points or less lost a game in this tournament. So you find the other path. You find a different way. You embrace what you are in the here and now. In the here and now, what is Syracuse? They're a team that's going to knock you in the face. They're a team that's going to grind it out, and they're going to mess with your head, and they're going to play that zone, and they're going to scrap for every rebound. Not today, they got out-rebounded, but the ones that mattered, they're going to hit their free throws, and they're going to find a way. So can they do it against Duke? That's the question. That's the question, because you got 2 coaches that are very familiar with each other. What a storyline for the Sweet 16, by the way. Boeheim and Krzyzewski, best of friends, ACC rivals, Olympic coaches together. Now they've got to go at it on a big stage. It's one thing to play Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium in the regular season. It's one thing to play Duke with 35,000 fans going bonkers at the Carrier Dome. Now you get Duke in the Sweet 16. Omaha, Nebraska is a very interesting choice for that. That's probably the last place on earth you would think that Syracuse and Nebraska would end up, or Syracuse and Duke, would end up playing in Nebraska, but that's the NCAA tournament. Things like that happen. So the Orange have a few days to try and solve a very big puzzle, and that is Wendell Carter, Marvin Bagley Jr. inside, Grayson Allen outside, Trayvon Duval hitting shots. But listen, they did it today. And, you know, you dance with the girl you brought to the prom. And Syracuse is, frankly, dancing ugly right now. They're dancing ugly and they're grinding, and that's how you're going to beat Duke. You are not going to match Duke, you know, tit for tat on the offensive side of the ball. You're going to embrace the grind once again. You're going to try and get them out of their rhythm. Duke's a little more used to it because they play Syracuse. They know how to counter the zone. They're playing zone themselves, and they're going to throw it at Syracuse, which will challenge O'Shea and Tyus and Frank to hit some shots. Merrick Dolezaj continues. He didn't pile up the numbers in this game like he did last game, but Merrick Dolezaj continues to, when given opportunities, hit that shot inside the paint and make plays wherever possible. So it's March, man. It is March. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. Can they beat Duke? I didn't think they'd beat Michigan State today. I didn't think they'd make it this far. I didn't think a 16 seed would beat a 1. That's the beauty of March Madness, my friends. Just when you think you know, you have no idea, right? So, hey, listen, you guys enjoy this. This is great. I'm happy for the fans. I'm happy for you guys. We're going to have plenty of coverage, as you can imagine. I'll have a recap up for you tomorrow. Mike Waters, Donna Datota, Chris Carlson, working hard out there in Detroit. They'll have plenty of coverage to come your way tonight on this. We'll continue to discuss it and talk about it through the week. But enjoy it for now, because the Orange are going to the Sweet 16. Keep pinching yourself. Keep doing this. It happened. The Orange beat Michigan State, and they're going to play in the Sweet 16 against Duke later this week. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Appreciate it. We'll be back after the Sweet 16. We'll be right back here on Facebook Live doing the thing after the Orange take on Duke later this week. So come on by, hang out with us then. Appreciate you hanging out with us today, and have a great rest of your Sunday. How could it not be after the Orange beat Michigan State 55-53? Thanks for hanging out with us here on Facebook Live. We'll be back later this week doing this again, but look for plenty of coverage on syracuse.com on the Orange making the Sweet 16. I have to keep saying that out loud to believe it. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you again soon, guys.